Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about splitting up your off-duty time in your United States logbook. This is mostly for team drivers, but single drivers can do it as well. The key to understanding how to split up your off-duty time in the US logbook is understanding the pattern. Once you understand the pattern, it's straightforward. My kids watch a cartoon called Umizoomi where they present a pattern and then they get the kids to guess the next shape in the pattern. Kids have a great time doing it. So think of this as an advanced Umizoomi, learning how to split up your off-duty time in your US logbook. We'll be right back with that. Hi there, Rick, welcome back. Talking to you today about splitting up your off-duty time in your US logbook, mostly for team drivers, but single drivers can do it as well. The first stipulation about splitting up your off-duty time in the United States is that you must have a sleeper berth unit on the back of the truck. You can't do it with a day cab. Must be a sleeper berth, must be an approved sleeper berth unit in order to split up your off-duty time in the United States of America. It is rigid in splitting up the 10 hours. It must be split up into one 8 consecutive hour block, 8-hour consecutive block rather, and a 2-hour block. The only concession of splitting up your time in an American logbook is that you no longer have to take the 30-minute break that is required when you're running a straight 10 consecutive hours off duty at or before the 8 hours. That's the only concession in splitting up your off-duty time. What is a little bit confusing for most is understanding the 14-hour window, because the 14-hour window moves depending on when you take your 8-hour or you take your 2-hour break. It's easier to think about it in terms of the 14-hour window as a 22-hour window when you take your 8-hour break and a 14-hour window when you take your 2-hour break, because the 8-hour off duty doesn't count towards your 14-hour window. So essentially the 8 hours off duty, you take that and add that to your 14-hour window. So if you started in the morning at 7 a.m., 14 hours is 9 p.m., you don't count your 8 hours, so you get another 8 hours, so 9 p.m. is to 5 a.m. So your 14-hour window extends out to 5 a.m. because essentially you don't count the 8 hours. You see here on the logbook, we started at 7 o'clock in the morning, we worked for 3 hours, we drove for 4 hours, which put us at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. At 2 p.m. in the afternoon, we took 8 hours off. So essentially we're working in a 22-hour window from 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning, because we took 8 hours off duty. So our 14-hour window extends out to 5 a.m. the next morning. You can see on the logbook here we take 8 hours off from 2 to 10 p.m. because if we've already driven 4 hours, we can drive another 7 hours from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. we must take another 2 hours off from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. When we take the next 2 hours off, we now have a 10-hour block from the previous 8 hours and the 2-hour block. So now our 14-hour window moves forward to the end of our most recent 8-hour block, as you can see here on the logbook, which is 10 o'clock at night. And because it's the 2-hour block is counted in our 14 hours, it's 10 o'clock at night to noon is our 14 hours. So essentially from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. we take off in the sleeper berth. Because we've already driven 7 hours, we only have another 4 hours. So if we start driving at exactly 7 o'clock, you can drive to 11 a.m. and then you cannot drive any longer, but you can work until noon, but you can only drive another 4 hours because you're up against that 11 hours. Now, if you just stop driving at 11 a.m. and don't work any farther, you take another 8 hours off. Now, your window, because it's the 8-hour block, is a 22-hour window and starts at 7 a.m. in the morning. So essentially your window, your working time extends to 5 a.m. the next morning. So that's the pattern. Everything else applies. You can find the basic logbook here, course on 11 hours in the 14-hour window, basic rules of driving for logbooks in the United States of America. And you need to think of it as that pattern. You come on duty, if you take your first break as your 8-hour break, it's a 22-hour window. And then you take your second break of 2 hours, the 2 hours is included in the 14-hour window. So at the end of that first 8-hour break, it's 14 hours. In the example we used, we started driving at 10 o'clock at night. The 14-hour window, which includes the 2-hour break, takes you up to noon the next day. When we stop driving at noon the next day, our 14-hour window resets to the end of the 2-hour block, which puts us into a 22-hour window because we don't include the 8 hours in the 14 hours. We simply add it on. So 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. the next day is now our window of working time, and in that 22 hours we can only drive 11 hours. The other thing that I will say about splitting off duty time in the United States of America, if you're running team, the 2 logbooks must dovetail. What I mean by dovetail is if one person is taking 8 hours off in the sleeper berth, the other person better be off duty as well or driving. Both drivers cannot be driving. So make sure that when you sit down at the truck stop or the rest area, wherever you're sitting down to do your logbooks, the 2 logbooks dovetail. Make sure that the 2 of you are not driving at the same time, because that will lead to violations on the part of the authorities if they're looking at your logbooks and they find out that the 2 of you are driving at the same time, or you violated the 11 hours in the 14-hour window, the 11 hours of driving, or you've exceeded the work hours. So keep all of that in mind. You got to recognize the pattern. If you can recognize the pattern, this is fairly straightforward. In conclusion, the best way to think of splitting your off-duty time in terms of the 8 hours off duty and the 2 hours off duty, if the 8 hours is in the 14-hour window, it's a 22-hour window because you take the 14-hour window and add the 8 hours to it. If it's 2 hours, the 2 hours is included in your 14-hour window, so the end of the 8-hour period, forward 14 hours. So if you start driving at 10 o'clock at night, which is the end of your 8 consecutive hours on duty, that's when you start driving, it's a 14-hour window to noon the next day. And within that 14-hour window or the 22-hour window, if you've got an 8-hour break in there, you can only drive a maximum of 11 hours. Team drivers, make sure that your 2 logbooks are dovetailing, not exceeding all of the other rules, the 11 hours in a 14-hour window or a 22-hour window. You're taking the 8-hour break in that window, or the 70 hours in 8 days, and make sure that the 2 logbooks dovetail, that the 2 of you are not driving at the same time. That's how you split up the logbook time in the United States of America. You like everything you see here? Go over to my website. The full course is available over there. All of the videos, all of the rules and regulations for driving in the United States of America, they're all written down. There's 2 exercises for you to fill out. There's questions related specifically to the exercises to help you understand and comprehend filling out a logbook, so that if you get pulled into a scale, get pulled over by authorities and they look at your logbook, you're not going to get a fine. As well, there's a free calculator for figuring out the 70 hours in 8 days, the work cycle, the rolling work cycle, which you also need to understand. And finally, there's a certificate of completion that you can take to your employer if you're looking to get hired. Gives you a leg up from everybody else because you have a certificate that says you took a certified logbook course. Question of the day for all my smart drivers. Now that you've seen the video on splitting your off-duty time in the United States of America on your logbook, how likely are you to split the off-duty time in your logbook? Once in a while, every now and again, on a regular basis? Leave a comment down in the comment section there. Be great to hear from you. We'll get back to you. We'll talk to you about this. Any questions or concerns as well, leave a comment down in the comment section. Jump over to my website, have a look at the course. Remember, comment, subscribe, share the video. All of that helps us out. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Bye now.